Conversations. I'm Kirk Yuhnke, and this is a really interesting conversation today on a topic that I think is so incredibly important for anybody who has kids or is going to have kids in school soon. We're talking about AI in schools, and specifically Denver Public Schools, because I've got Billy Sayers here. He is the DPS Director of Curriculum and Instruction, the STEAM program there at DPS. Billy, good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. There's a bunch of different angles we want to talk about because AI impacts teachers. It impacts the schools, and of course it impacts the students and families at home. So I'm going to try to break this up into a couple of different kind of perspectives here, and I want to start with students. First and foremost, I mean, can we just acknowledge that none of us really know everything about AI at this point because it's changing by the day. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment. Being mindful of how it's used, the platforms change, new products come to market all the time, just being mindful of how our students feel about AI, how teachers feel about AI. So we're learning as we go, but it's a true statement that it's an evolving thing that we need to be responsive to.
Every day. And I feel like, at least with my own kids, like they kind of are excited about AI. I mean, many of them grew up kind of with it to some extent the past few years, especially when you talk about these younger kids. How do you guys navigate that with kids? How do you introduce them to AI if they're young? Do we know what age is appropriate to start talking about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the reality is our students now are digital natives.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about how they've grown up with screens, the iPads, being really naturally inclined to utilize these systems.
Yeah.
And so we think about it in kind of multiple levels, K5, 6, 8, 9, 12. Noticing that 9-12 probably does use it. High school students use it for productivity, are probably a little more thoughtful about how they use it. But at the same time, K5 students need to be aware of AI.
Yeah.
It is in everyday lives. Adults use it all the time. It's a future expectation of the job market
and
as
they're
well.
going to hear about it.
And
because mom and dad are talking about it. The news is talking about it. The teachers are talking about it.
And so we think no matter what, all students, K-12, AI literacy is a foundational kind of knowledge piece for them to hopefully understand what AI is, what it isn't. It's not a human talking to you. It's something inside a computer in a sense, and it's an algorithm having predictive knowledge. So students understanding what AI is, what it can do, what it can't do, and how can it potentially help their learning, but also be mindful of like what it could take away from their learning experience as well.
And I think the initial reaction when AI first started coming to fruition was to say, hey, we just need to keep our kids away from this stuff. They're just going to use it to cheat. I feel like we've learned that maybe isn't the best path.
It's not. I think naturally students have access to tools if we block them or ban them in a sense or say no to it. So we've been try to be mindful in terms of assignments. So a lot of times our high school teachers will take an approach of this is a AI available assignment or this is a no AI assignment.
Interesting.
In a lot of ways you can check how students are learning by having them write paper or pencil. Also just giving them feedback and monitoring their iterative process in terms of turning things in. But in terms of cheating, I feel like that was the conversation probably 2 or 3 years ago.
That was like the initial conversation.
It was.
The fear, really.
It was. And it's probably no different than we had, what was it, the Cliff's Notes?
Yeah.
If you can always find a summary
Never heard
of a book.
of those, Billy.
You can find a summary of a book. I think there's other forms of that. It's also the first iteration of the internet. So you could Google answers and that kind of thing. And so it's really thinking about how students use it, how we expose them to it, and being mindful, like, if this is a tool you want to use, this is potentially what you are giving up, or this is what we can use it for. And so we've talked to a lot of students, and their concern too is this cognitive decline. And so students saying, is this doing the thinking for me? And is that what I want? And so a lot of our students have been advocates of saying, teach me about AI so I know about it, know how to use it, but also know when not to use it.
It's interesting because you talk about Cliff's Notes. I think it's funny that you bring that up because, of course, you and I are both in the age range where when we were going through school, that was a thing. And I feel like most of us bought it once or twice and then realized, well, wait a second, I go to class and my teachers ask me these questions and I really don't know how to answer them because I didn't actually read the book. And I said, I'm not going to do this next time because it felt good to get the answers quickly. And I feel like it's sort of the same way with AI. And maybe you guys are seeing this with students where, as you mentioned, they want to be thoughtful. They generally want to learn. And sure, there are shortcuts out there, but I don't think most students inherently want all the shortcuts.
I'd agree with that. I think students would say, what's the level of this assignment? What's the assignment asking me to do? If it's just asking me to regurgitate knowledge, that's not very exciting. Right. But if an assignment is immersive, if it's making me think about my positions, what I believe, what I'm learning, applying the learning, then I think you're right. Students want to be part of that learning process opposed to just recalling facts.
Yeah, and you've been a principal, you've been a teacher, so maybe like creating those, and we'll talk about this in a second when we talk more about how teachers use AI, but creating assignments that are almost AI proof because it's more deep thinking. You can't really do this with AI necessarily, and if you do, it's pretty obvious if you do.
True.
So maybe that's part of how you navigate that. Are you talking with parents a lot too about how to expose kids to AI at home?
We do. So we have AI resources for our schools to talk to parents at curriculum nights. We also have a subcommittee for family and community engagement. Also, our FACE department has resources to share with parents. We're very mindful also about the tools we're letting students use. And so approved tools only for our students. K-12 is Magic School. Gemini is available 6 to 12, but those are monitored tools. And so part of our message to parents too is we are introducing students to DPA, which is a data privacy addendum approved tools within our system to make sure students are using tools that we also can monitor. And so we want them on approved tools so their data is safe. We can kind of track what they're asking, give them feedback. And so it's making parents educated about the safety around AI use, what is available, what's not available, and how we're using it effectively.
And these are approved tools through the DPS network and through like DPS Chromebooks, for example.
Yeah, so they can access these tools through their student accounts, through student logins. The usefulness of these tools, specifically Magic School and Google, Magic School destroys student data on a nightly basis. It also doesn't learn, the model doesn't learn from our students. And then Gemini, it's a Google product. We are a Google district. All our data is housed for ourselves. And so again, external learning from students isn't happening.
It's so interesting. Are you excited to see that, ChatGPT, for example, and I just use them as an example here, but they just created a version 14 specifically, where some of these safeguards that you're talking about are now going to be built in. Is it exciting to see the AI companies finally pulling back a little bit and saying, okay, maybe we need to make versions that are different based on the age?
It's very exciting. So it was funny that we actually banned ChatGPT for students about a week before that decision was made from OpenAI to have a student version, because we wanted students on a safe environment. And that was getting them to be on Google Gemini or Magic School. So I'm glad there is some responsiveness from companies. I mean, at this point with our students, we have to make them realize that their data is money for these companies. And so they're trying to learn on them. They're trying to sell their data. And so just being mindful of the tools you use, what you're putting out there. And so on network, we only use approved tools.
Well, and that's the thing, on network. But you know as well as I do, especially when it comes to high school kids, I mean, these kids have phones and access to their own laptops at home. And so, I feel like, just like with Cliff Notes, like, yes, you can go use that tool, but maybe teaching a bigger picture concept of like why not using AI in some situations makes more sense. And it becomes more complicated at that age level, doesn't it?
It does. It's almost walking students through the decision process. You know, inherently, why are you going to go to AI? What questions are you going to ask? What kind of prompts are you putting in? What kind of answers are you getting for? Are you taking the first answer you get? Are you pushing back with the model? And so it's really almost a flow chart for students of when to use it, how to use it, what's the benefit, when do you need it, and when do you not need it in a sense.
Or when does it make sense not to use
it?
Quick break, and we're going to talk about teachers and faculty and staff at these schools and how they utilize AI, because these aren't just tools for students. These are certainly tools for other people in the schools to use as well, and I know you guys are involved in that. So quick break, and we'll talk about that in just a second. All right. Welcome back, guys. Colorado Conversations, and I love this because I have teenagers, and so AI in schools is such an important issue right now. We're all talking about it. We're trying to figure out how to navigate it. Billy Sayers from DPS certainly trying to navigate it as well. You're heavily involved in figuring out how DPS, one of the top 20 largest school districts in the country, manages AI. We talked about students, but teachers are using it too, and that's I wouldn't say it's a dangerous territory, but it's something that you probably want to be careful about too.
It is. The biggest, I wouldn't say concern, but the biggest thing we think about is how teachers build their curricular knowledge. So we have curriculum for all classes.
That you provide to teachers.
Yes, we provide. And we want teachers to utilize AI to understand and kind of build a knowledge around the curriculum, but not to go out and find new resources. It's similar to a site that's been around for a while, Teacher Pay Teachers. So a teacher is planning for instruction. They go on the internet, search for a lesson plan. I was guilty of it 10, 15 years ago. I did the same thing.
Well, you're buying a lesson plan from another teacher at that point, right?
But you don't necessarily know it's standards aligned to Colorado or aligned to the grade level where the students are. And so thinking about using AI as a tool to better understand curriculum, to provide extra opportunities within the curriculum for specific students, and so really tailoring it to meet the needs of their students. So AI can be used as a tool for that and to build personal knowledge, but not to create from the ground up. We don't want teachers doing that because we've heavily invested in professional learning, in curriculum to ensure students are meeting grade level standards.
It's kind of like when you're using it to help write. Like you don't want to use it to create the writing from nothing, because then it's not really your work. Whereas if you're going in there and saying, hey, listen, I created this lesson plan. Can you take a look at it and clean it up? That might be a little bit different than saying just create a lesson plan for me. How do you control that? I mean, it's obviously with the students, you try to control some of that. It's a lot more difficult with faculty and staff.
It is. And so we try to have professional learning around how to effectively use AI to support instruction, support students. So a very systematic approach is building Gemini notebooks around curriculum. So a Gemini notebook is a AI kind of tool or language model that's built around the knowledge base they put in. So if they put in their curricular resources, we know when they ask questions to the notebook, it's grounding in resources that are DPS approved and resources they're utilizing for instruction.
So do you guys? So if you're not familiar with notebooks, I know a lot of people. It's a lot. There's a lot going on here. As you mentioned, it's sort of like you put your sources in the notebook, and then AI will certainly look to the outside world, but it grounds itself, I think that's a good way of putting it, in the information you provided. So do you create notebooks that faculty and staff can use, like DPS notebooks?
So we have actually partnered with content teams as well as schools to do this, and then also with individual teachers. Specifically, if you're a teacher, let's say in the arts, and you might be the only arts teacher in the building. And so how are you interacting with your curriculum? If you're a math teacher in a big high school, you've got 12 teachers to talk to. You've got partners to think about, to reflect on student work,
and coordinate
to plan.
Because you all want to be on the same page.
Yeah, and so if you're a singleton teacher and you want to understand your curriculum better, is there a tool we can build for you to interact with the curriculum? And so you're right, it grounds in the curriculum, and also usually it cites the sources too with Notebook, which is unique. So it says, this part of the lesson or this part of the the PowerPoint presentation or slides presentation you have is what we're pulling from. And so it's very ingrained in our curriculum, opposed to, you're right, going to the internet and grabbing random resources.
Well, and I know there's AI companies that are looking at teaching with AI, like removing the teacher and just using AI as a teacher. I mean, that's a whole new way of thinking, and I'm sure DPS hasn't figured out. I don't want you to take a position on that, but it makes you think.
It does.
You guys aren't doing any of that now, obviously.
We're not. We have responsive tools that utilize AI for Tier 2 instruction for additional supports. But even then, it's limited. So a student might interact with these tools for 10 or 15 minutes a day. And it's very prescriptive and guided by the teacher. The teacher assigns a use of a tool like this. Something to be mindful of, schools that are utilizing AI for primary instruction or Tier 1 instruction, is that you could then think about screen time. How much screen time, how much time are you putting students in front of the Chromebook?
Is that something you guys think about a lot?
It is. It's something we monitor regularly. Just being cognizant of how often kids are on the screen, how often they're collaborating, keeping the teacher as the center of the facilitator, keeping the kids involved in the learning process collaboratively. We don't want to put a Chromebook in front of a student for multiple hours a day. I don't think it's beneficial, or we don't have a proof of concept that shows it works. So just being mindful of tools in a selective manner.
Well, when you talk about Chromebooks, I mean, the schools have Chromebooks, but DPS as a district has said no phones in schools. And so that's kind of part of managing this too, is that you're saying don't bring your devices to school because you can't use them in the schools. That helps you control some of this, right?
It does. It allows us to monitor what programs students are accessing. Also being mindful of a teacher having to say intentionally, like, this is a chance to bring your Chromebooks out, utilize this AI tool, utilize this learning aid, and then put your Chromebooks away. Let's move on to the next part of the lesson. So even with that, our high schoolers are only averaging about an hour of time on the Chromebook across DPS. Elementary is about 30 to 45 minutes, so there's not as much as you may think. And also even the AI tools we use, an effective teacher might use an AI tool like Magic School for about 15 minutes every other day. And so it's not inundating students with these tools, but being available if they need them.
Is that an important part of what you guys do, is looking at how much time these teachers are using to figure out how integrated it is to what they're doing?
We do. We monitor on-time usage of all applications, but also being mindful of teacher effectiveness. So going back to this idea of what teachers use AI for, teachers' jobs are hard. They really are. They do.
God bless them, by the way.
And so we want a tool to make their lives a little more efficient, more effective, but also provide more time to interact with students. And so thinking about teachers using AI, we also try to learn and scale what's working. So if a teacher does have a chatbot they built in Magic School that's in a protective environment, they give student feedback for writing, but then allows them to individually coach students one-on-one, we might scale that. But if we also see other uses of AI that probably aren't beneficial or aren't aligned to making a teacher's life easier, we'll say, you know what? Drop that idea. Let's try something else. And so we do monitor mainly to scale effective practices.
Yeah, but we really are kind of throwing stuff at the wall right now, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the world, right?
It's collective learning, I would say. And so it's iterating on best practice. It's grounding our professional learning too when we train teachers in building AI literacy, effective prompting, giving them use case examples, them having then letting them explore and kind of create the environment they want to create.
Okay, the question is what's next? And I know none of us have the real clear answer on that. No magic 8-ball, but I do want to talk about kind of where we go from here and where you guys see education being in 5 years from now for a lot of those kids who are just getting into school now. Going to talk about that after a quick break. There is no question, none of us have all the answers when it comes to how to manage artificial intelligence in schools. Everyone's sort of trying. Billy Sayers here is one of those people that's at least trying to figure it out. He's with Denver Public Schools, and I know you've been tasked with trying to manage all this, figure out what a plan is for students, what a plan is for teachers, and where we go next, right? Because if you go back 5 years ago, none of this had started yet. Isn't that amazing to think? No, I mean, it was bubbling, it was happening, but it certainly wasn't in the hands of teachers and students yet. And so much has changed in the past 5 years. Where will we be in 5 years from now?
That's a big question. Ideally, we are still letting students follow their passion through learning. Yeah. Students are still the center of everything we do. Our schools are built on interaction between teachers and students. Hopefully we have more real-world learning opportunities for students. But in terms of technology, we're hopefully using technology to make students and teachers' lives easier. Yeah. I think an important thing, too, that might become mandatory down the road is learning about AI. So do students have a specific set of learnings in kindergarten, in 6th grade, and 9th grade to develop AI literacy so they can be consumers, effective consumers, and agents of their own kind of utilization of AI. I think we're also talking about the impacts of AI on the brain, on our environment, sustainability, and making sure that students have a perspective that's not just said, hey, use this product. And so we're finding better use cases that make a teacher's life easier. We're finding use cases that help students individualize their learning, but we're not taking away that connection from schools.
Yeah, but when you think about it, too, I mean, you talk about AI literacy. These are kids, especially the kids who are young now, who are you're not going to graduate high school for years to come. They're going to be entering a world where there's a huge expectation that you know how to use it, you understand how to write prompts, you understand, and they may be working in some of these data centers trying to figure out the sustainability problem. And so you can't pretend it doesn't exist, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And you could see it in a class like social studies or civics where you're doing research or taking a critical stance, and AI could be a topic you discuss. Yeah. And so it really becomes a foundational learning experience for all students. You're right. Awareness and knowledge creates agency, and students need to have agency in this world because they're inundated with it. It's on your phone. It could be a career path, and technology can potentially be making decisions for you. So students understanding what that means, and also just being protectors of their own data as well in the long term.
Yeah, knowing how to keep yourself safe online and all that kind of stuff. And I know that your background goes through a lot of different STEAM programs, involved in robotics programs with kids and 3D printing and teaching all that and learning all that. Are you excited about some of this AI stuff? Because as much as there is a little level of fear and protection, and we want to be careful with it, but it's also kind of exciting.
It is exciting. I think when we see a teacher utilize it to give multiple students feedback and then one-on-one coach them and give them more attention that's actually grounded in the work they've done. Or when we see a student kind of create a personalized tutor that meets the needs of them, that all of a sudden, like, I feel comfortable interacting with this, that I might be too scared to raise my hand in class and ask questions.
Yeah, good point.
And so the way we can personalize tools to benefit DPS staff, DPS stakeholders, and also bring families along as a tool for families to help their students at tutoring at home and building content knowledge. And so I'm excited about it because we're at the forefront, I feel, at DPS in terms of utilizing this in the classroom. We're being thoughtful. We're also bringing in stakeholders to give us feedback. We've got teachers giving us feedback on how to use it effectively. We've got students being mindful and being honest about how they want to use it or don't want to use it. We've got principals giving us feedback on how they're training their staff. And so it's a collective journey, but excited because we're all building this together.
Yeah, I think that's important, too, is getting all the voices in the room to try to understand all the different perspectives. And it's a good point, too. You talk about parents helping kids. I mean, I have used AI, taken a picture of the math problem my kids are doing because I don't understand it, and asked AI to walk me through the solutions, the steps. And then I said, okay, now I get it. Now let me help you with it. Not necessarily showing them the answer, but helping me understand it so I can help them. And I think a lot of parents go through that.
It's true. Yeah. If it helped parents help their students, that's also a huge value add. But even then, having a discussion around, like, what the output was. Why was the output that? And then a student just getting multiple opportunities. As a parent, you can create another problem. Say, make me another problem that's like this.
I've done that too.
Exactly.
I've done that too. What would your message be to parents out there? I mean, it seems, if anything, what I'm getting a sense of is that you guys are really taking your time to try to figure this out.
I would say be mindful consumers of technology always. Ask questions. I wouldn't take a binary stance on anything. I would say I would have conversations with my kids of how are you using it? How is a teacher talking about it? What are you being asked to do? Do you feel like it's taking away from your learning? Is there a way that you can, as a student, show me what you're doing, teach me as well, so we can go on this journey together? I think it's just having open dialogue with students.
It's not black and white.
It's not black
yes
and white.
or no.
It's not. It's not. I mean, we could easily say don't use it at all. But then, like you said earlier, it's a reality of a lived experience moving forward. But you'd also say embrace it and don't be thoughtful, but you want to ask questions. And so I think it's like any issue with students. Talk to your kids, ask them questions, learn what they're doing, and be a partner with them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do for DPS and taking some time to talk to us. And hopefully for parents that was helpful in trying to understand what DPS is doing, how DPS is navigating this, and frankly, probably every school district across the country trying to navigate this right now.